All right. All right, we'll call the meeting to order. Start with pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one
And under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Welcome, everybody. Hopefully anybody listening out there, don't forget to vote. Got a couple hours left. We'll start off with consent agenda. Oh, yeah, never mind. What do we do? Do I have a motion to appoint Elliot as our clerk pro tem?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Questions?
Second. Oh, I didn't hear.
Questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any against? All right, now we can go to the consent agenda. So, first, before we actually go into it, is there anything anyone wants, pulled off of it? Okay, do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion, questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Okay. All right, moving to new business, financial warrants. Do I have a motion to adopt the following resolution?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any against? All right, next is to accept the donation from the Eastern Dutchess Roadrunners Club of $3,000. With tremendous gratitude. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any comments, questions?
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Thank you.
very nice.
Wonderful.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Okay. Next is to accept the resignation of Camille Patron. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? How long has she been?
Justin Cheryl moved out of the business office
At least,
6 years.
yeah. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Okay, we'll go back to, in the old business. The discussion about changing the calendar. Just to recap, we have to have, within the first 15 days of July, we have to have it done. We have to actually have officers and reorg, thank you, Howard. And so the discussion was either the possibility of the 6th, leave it as it is, I believe, which is the 11th, right?
Could you give us your reasoning for not being comfortable with keeping it on the 11th?
Yeah, because I don't like the 11th. No, yeah, I'm just kidding. No, actually, the reorg meeting should be done in person.
Right.
So I'll get back here. So if that works for everybody, then we can leave it the way it is. Is that, Howard, you okay with that, the 11th? Yeah.
Either one.
I can really make either, so that's more convenient for you. I gotta get back on the.
Yeah, we'll do the 11th. That you might as well. All right, so do I have a motion to adopt the meeting schedule, 23, 24, including the 11th?
Now,
I
said
said
third.
second, I didn't.
the Birdman. All in favor? Aye. Any against? Okay. The next thing is the Dutchess Community College MOU. Do we need a motion for this?
We will, because we need to sign it. And so basically, obviously the cost of tuition is in there. But there was some other terms that we had to agree to. In the past, if there was no MOU, it was just sort of an understanding, like a handshake deal. So there was an MOU that was originally published to each school district. Then there was a movement, on the Dutchess County schools to have one MOU for the entire county. And basically, I said that it's really not gonna work for us because there were some terms in there that just impact small schools very differently than they impact larger schools. So a couple of districts came away from the singular MOU and were able to negotiate some terms with Dutchess. One of the things that they were really clinging to was that with enrollment of less than 10, they would automatically cancel a class. And as we know, there are certain classes that just by the nature of like the entire program, that by the time a student is a senior and eligible for earning college credit, there's just not 10 students who are interested. Maybe it doesn't fit in their schedule. And then I feel like we're punishing the kids who do want to take a college class for the students who don't, right? And there's really no way to motivate a kid if they don't want to do it. So they did make that concession. So basically, any class less than 5, they would not run. But between 5 and 10, we would be able to have a conversation with them. And essentially, it would be a shared decision as to whether or not we canceled. Because of the fact that, you know, for an example, like our French, we only have one section of French all the way through. So by the time they get to senior year, it's often that we're less than 10. So they were understanding of that, that we would troubleshoot together and ultimately we would decide together if we would run the course or not.
Now, what happens, shared decision, say we say one way and they want the other, so then what happens?
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna have to place some faith that they're gonna do right by us and that, well, I mean, that's all we can do, right?
They haven't done right, I'll go on the soapbox, they haven't done right by deciding to charge students and or their families to pay for the college courses that they've been allowing for free to the public school. Now, I will mention Lord's as a example only, that they were charging the same rates that they would want to charge our students. However, a school, private school like Lord's also has students that do not live in Dutchess County, and their parents aren't Dutchess County residents. Now, they pay the same money as somebody who went to Lord's, whose parents do live in Dutchess County. Dutchess Community College is, to make it sweet and simple, they're taking tax dollars from our parents and land and our property owners. They are now reaching into pockets, even though it's great that they're charging us a third of a college course. But it was previously free to the public schools, and they're doing this. I just think it's a bunch of money grab, and because they're not doing well, or they don't know how to manage their own monies. That should not be the public school district, any public school district's problem. And I don't think we should hear, oh, well, other colleges, other SUNY community colleges in other counties are doing the same thing. This is Dutchess County. They are in charge of Dutchess County. They can do community college. They can make their own rules as they have. I know this has to pass, but I will vote no, just standing on principle that all this is sticking their hands into taxpayer pockets twice. First, by being a Dutchess County resident and a property owner, and second, charging their children any fee for a college course that was given in past years free. No, no, sir.
Anybody else?
I actually agree. I think especially in today's day and age, this is not a great thing, you know, so I'm not really fond of this.
No,
People work.
I don't think anybody is. I mean, there was a lot of pushing and shoving, you know, not physically, but on why this had to be this way. They did reduce the amount of money, but it's probably a temporary thing, you know, that'll go back up next year. But they, at least, this is more, excuse me, this is more about sort of our rights to put our students in those classes, you know, without them just saying, there's not enough kids, so shut it down. But it is one of those things that I personally had conversations with a couple of legislators that I really don't like this whole thing. I don't understand how, you know, how this came about. But if we want our kids to go to Dutchess Community College, we have to face up. So.
And
Anybody
that's
else?
really what we're voting on, is just being able to make the courses available at this
Right.
point.
Right.
The tuition, that ship has sailed. Whether anybody agrees with it or not, this is just to give students an opportunity.
Right, and that's what we all want, just I definitely want to voice the fact that I'm happy with what they're doing.
Understood.
So do I have a motion to approve the MOU between Dutchess and Millbrook Central School District? Go a second.
I'll second.
All right. Anything else anybody wants to say about this? Howard, your vote?
No,
Jen?
Yes,
Chris?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. All right. Let's go back here. Okay, President, Vice President's report. So, really the one thing I wanted to talk about is I was asked to go to the Village of Millbrook board meeting to sort of listen to complaints about traffic, but also, you know, bring some facts like, you know, since the pandemic, our ridership continues to drop, which means there's more parents that are actually picking up. It is not just the pre-K, which was some of the, call it feedback we received. There is they accepted the, excuse me, they accepted the single side of the street parking that's been put in the village. There was a couple of people that were there that had some proposals that, let's just say, weren't in keeping with what we want to do or what happens today. It was someone from the village said they should just basically block Alden Place off, and that our parents should come in from the high school, everything, including Alden, should come in that way, everything should go out that way. I gave them a couple of things that I remember from history, like, you know, I was the chairman of the planning board in Millbrook when the property was donated from the school to the village. That is that roadway in front of the Church Alliance and the condos that used to be school property. So, you know, if you really are thinking about, you know, digging a trench across there or whatever, remember that used to be our property. I did tell them that we are pushing to do a capital project that none of that is written in stone, so I was not going to, discuss it. But that between Alden and Elm really were the two issues. Mayor Colopy asked me to basically hold off for a little bit, and the village wants to take a look at it. See if they can come up with any solutions or alternatives. But basically it's up to us eventually. So we need to continue to look at the capital project. But yeah, there was only a couple of folks that were there. But they want to make some progress on, especially Elm. And Officer Witt was there, who brought up a really good point that, 3-year-olds can't go on buses, not legally. And once they turn 4, they can. Now, how many do, I don't know, but that is and according to Officer Witt and I know my career, things have improved in the flow. People know which entrance to go through and how to get in there, but it's still an issue. Anyway, so for now, we'll wait until the village puts some thought into it, some additional thought into it. I also asked them to please keep in mind that that roadway is a public roadway, and that our teachers, our parents, the taxpayers have a right to go on Alden Place. It's their road, they can block it off, make it a dead end if they want. But it's not just the opinion of a couple of folks, it's the entire district. So anyway, that was all I had since then. Dutchess County School Board, I don't know if any of you guys replied to the meeting.
Terry, before you move on, can I ask you a
Yeah,
question
yeah.
on what you just mentioned? Actually, 2 questions, but first question dealing with the traffic changes that village wants to do with Alden and Elm. Did you find out, or was there anything presented that the village board did a traffic and safety study?
David, I don't know if you would call it an all-encompassing study, but they have done a number of, and it's not just the problem the village has is over the years, signs of just like, oh, this is a stop sign, let's change it to a yield sign. You can't do that and have it be enforceable. So the bigger piece for the village is to get a comprehensive plan. They showed the speed, which I was shocked at on Franklin Avenue, that the vast majority, almost all of the traffic is within 5 miles an hour of the speed limit. I would have bet money that was not the case, but they had the real data from Franklin Avenue. I think especially with Alden and Elm, Alden is kind of there's some things that we can do with Alden as the district that we need to deal with. I think there's some options for Elm, but I don't think anybody's going to be thrilled because,
Truthfully, I did not attend this meeting that you went to, but as a district board member, and somebody who worked pretty in depth with Department of Transportation before I retired, I would strongly encourage the village to hire a traffic and safety study engineering firm to go over their entire thought process and plan before they implement, and open up the village residents and to a possible lawsuit. that's normally the next step in doing these type of changes.
Mhm.
To make sure that everything that they're thinking of doing complies with New York State, traffic control devices and, manual and New York State law. So I'll just throw that out to our board.
No, you're absolutely right, Howard, and you remember this whole thing started with them coming to us and saying, what do you think if we let parking go on both sides of Walden? And our letter back to them was, you're talking about our smallest children, that, you know, there is only, right now, only one crosswalk, basically at the other end of Walden. So there, you know, the little ones could be coming out from either side. And they took that under consideration and actually modified their plan. But I think the issue of cars lining up and picking up and has just been, and I honestly, I don't know how many people. Because the other thing I did bring up is no one's ever come to us. As long as I've been on the board, no one's ever come and said, I can't get out of my driveway at Elm Drive. You know, or I can't, you know, I'm afraid to cross the street at all. But, you know, so I mean, I think we need to make sure that we address some of this in their capital project. I think the village, you know, their hands are tied. I mean, if you think about Elm, they can't make it any wider. You can't make Alden any wider. So their hands are tied, but you also can't, I mean, you know, if they came to you tomorrow and said, hey, we're cutting, you know, we're gonna dig a trench across your driveway, you can't get out because you caused so much traffic. That's, you know, and we are the equivalent of a homeowner and just a really big one.
Well, we're a stakeholder in whatever they may want to do, but, yeah, it's next move's theirs, but they should really go through the proper, process, to make sure everything that's done is safe, and proper. That's what it's all about, keeping everybody, village residents and our students safe. Second question would be, did you get to speak to the mayor about the fire, the Millbrook Fire Department?
I did not. I did find out that that's a completely, like, the Millbrook Firehouse is like the one that reports into the mayor, so somehow that's why we're not getting those numbers.
Right.
But I mean, it won't happen this, you know, for this school year anyway, so
I'll look at the new business and then I'll address that separately.
yeah,
Thank
they
you.
were both there and I should have asked and I just
Thank you.
forgot. Chris, you got anything?
You want to mention something? That's.
Oh, the Dutch School Board, did you guys, anybody going?
We can't,
I can't.
that's, we can't, yeah.
Is it?
It's a concert.
See,
Great.
did
It's a
you guys
concert night.
give me a hard time about how come, you know, this is one of those ones we want to go to?
I know,
Yeah,
but
can we
it's
move the
Or
date
June
for
9th.
us?
Is it June 1st or June?
June 1st.
it's, yeah, Alden concert.
And I did ask Cheryl. So Jen brought up a good point, the end of the year stuff. I mean, it would be great if we could figure out who can actually attend the concerts, the moving up, the, you know, all that stuff.
So anything grayed out has already passed the date. And anything else is divided by building.
Can I go to Lake Compton?
I'm sorry.
I
Put my foot back on.
think how fast we can get people.
So do you want, like, how do you want to do this?
Well, is there,
You can just, I mean, but you
Yeah.
just go by events.
I mean, graduation, we're all set, right?
Yeah.
Everybody's
Right,
committed.
we're all done.
The June 9th, the academic awards.
No, June sixth,
Okay,
June
grades 9 to
9. Oh, that's
Oh,
for today,
yeah.
okay, yep, that's at 9 AM,
Yeah.
June 9th, 9 AM.
So I'm over in the,
Oh,
look under high school and then.
The far
down in
right.
the bottom part. I mean, I was planning to be at that, to be at the senior academic.
That's the
Is that,
underclass,
that one,
the senior academic awards are June 1st.
right, and that's one I can't go to, so. I don't know, hopefully some of you folks.
oh,
can-
June first.
Yeah, that's the spring
That's-
Yeah.
concert also.
Yeah, I can
So
do the
we-
9th. I was planning on going to the 9th.
Mr. Snipe, is that the right date?
I'm looking at my calendar now.
I thought it was June 6th,
I
June
do.
12th. I had-
Graduation?
No, the
No.
awards, the senior awards.
Senior academic.
12.
awards.
So it's the 12th.
Oh, so that's,
June 12th.
Yeah,
okay, oh, good, all right. Well, should be able to be there and the one on the night,
Okay,
You wanna go through all this now, or you wanna just have us?
yeah,
circle what we
if
think
you,
and then we
yeah,
can kind
if
of-
you can,
James, circle what you can make, and then I can put it all together in a list.
Okay.
right? And if we can get this to Dina too.
I can email Dina.
All right, there's nobody,
I did not.
Caroline?
Okay, so I have a couple of things. I just want to piggyback on the conversation about traffic. We are always interested in feedback. We're always interested in how we can do better. We had feedback that was given to us today unsolicitedly. And we were able to make an adjustment on the dismissal and arrival. It's a small thing that, you know, if we're not aware of it, then we can't, you know, impact it. But when we do know, we can obviously work to try and find a better solution. So please, if there is something, contact the administration. Not everything needs to go directly to the Board of Education. We are in the buildings every day. We're managing these processes every day, and we're always looking to do better. So please, if there's something we can do better, let us know. Additionally, yes,
Is same with the traffic, is the village, or are the village, whatever, putting a crosswalk up by our property?
I don't know about that. I think that was something that was mentioned, but I didn't hear that it was anything
Okay,
definitive.
maybe, Elliot, if you can
We
call,
can check on it.
yeah, because I think up near. Actually, I thought they were supposed to put two, one like almost where the road comes out from our school, so that there would actually be a crosswalk there. And then I think down at the end of our property would be another crosswalk. So hopefully our kids will sort of focus on that versus just randomly going across the road.
Right.
Yeah, look, or I'll tell you what, I'll call, Tim, Mary Colby, and find out. That was mentioned at the meeting, that was one of the things that, the village is going to hopefully do, and then we would maintain it. But anyway, okay, sorry.
No, that's fine. Did you have a question?
I did, but I can wait it to, okay. So the gate that blocks traffic going into the high school and middle school. Until what time is that supposed
It's at
to be
arrival and dismissal.
closed? So it's open after what, 2:30? Yeah. Just an observation, doesn't mean you have to do anything about it, but often with now that the Alden cars come out of, out of the loop. Today was horrible. I don't know if it was because of voting and somebody just didn't know why those cars were there. I mean, an SUV flew around those cars down the hill, and I mean, a bus was coming. It was actually really scary. So I'm not saying, it could have just been a voter. I'm not saying it was somebody that works here, but it does often happen where someone's coming down that hill and they're increasing in speed and then there's a car coming up slowly or even a bus, I don't know. If anything,
Well, I mean,
Can-
and that's even
Yeah.
one of the reasons behind. I'm not sure sending the buses up the hill from
Yeah.
Alden is even feasible, much less doable. I mean, it's not. You know, you have to make that left and the right. And yeah, can you do it? Yes.
Yeah.
Can you do it safely with 25, 7-year-olds in the car, but in the bus? No. So.
Yeah.
Anyway. But maybe one of the things that we're gonna have to do is randomly ask Mike Greer to just spot check these things, you know, go to Elm for 2 days or 5 days or whatever.
I mean, he's pretty good. He's there a lot, because it's, you know, because Elm Drive has kind of been a hot button issue, so he's there a lot, but he does try to spread himself between the buildings, especially at arrival and dismissal.
And I also asked if it's possible that Officer Witt could be, or the village officer could be there to, you know, make sure people are behaving, you know, they're not going in the out.
Right, and that was actually part of the discussion that I just had today. And I know that, I spoke to John Mullins and he went down and I know he spoke to some of Alicia's staff to make sure that, we will have cones set up to prevent that, as well as an actual staff member there. So that was just brought to my attention that on occasion that is a problem. And in the past, we used to have a staff member there. As you know, one of our staff members was absent for a long period of time and then has switched positions. So I think it was just a practice that maybe had kind of fallen off. So we're gonna put that back in. We did today at dismissal, as well as blocking folks from making a left turn out of the Elm Drive, that little apron area there. So that was brought to our attention today. So we addressed it for as early as dismissal today. So hopefully that will alleviate some of those concerns, and we'll just seek additional feedback as we go forward.
Okay,
So also about the Dutchess County School Board meeting, I do know that there was a significant discussion about pre-K services for students with disabilities in the county. I know that there's a significant shortage, not just of providers, but also evaluators. So basically districts are saying, like, we need some relief here. A lot of districts don't have the staff to manage the volume, and I know that our staff has been gracious enough to take on the additional evaluations. In some cases, we're permissible, also the services, but that is, you know, additional to what they've done in the past. So there is a cost associated with that currently we cannot be reimbursed for. We did try to enter into a contract with Dutchess County, but our legal and their legal, the contracts did not jive. We were not able to get it to jive. So we cannot currently be reimbursed, but we are required to provide those services because that is the home district's responsibility. So it's a little bit of a catch-22. I mean, I think Alex is here, she can tell you that it's a lot. To coordinate services once, you know, with outside agencies, and then to find out that those outside agencies actually can't perform the evaluation or can't perform the services. And then it's like back to the drawing board. Even more significant is that all of that is happening within a definitive timeline, right? So once we receive consent for an evaluation, we have 60 days to fully evaluate and make recommendations for that child. And we have to put it out there for these other, you know, the preferred agencies of the parent, and then we're getting back, well, we can do that in June, and it's like, well, that's already past the 60-day mark. So it's a problem. They've heard from all the counties. It's not just a Dutchess County problem, it's everywhere in the region. I mean, when we sit and talk to the liaisons, it's statewide right now. Ever since COVID, for whatever reason, the situation has just gotten so much worse. So
the whole discussion was incredibly confusing because there was a number of, like, Poughkeepsie said that they can't get people to go to Poughkeepsie because they don't feel safe. And so the teachers can go to the teachers can choose where to go and they don't go to Poughkeepsie, and it was sort of, it got to the point where I was trying to figure out what do they want us to do about it. And again, it was, you know, can't get the instructors, they don't wanna go where they're, you know, where they're needed. They can't afford it,
Yeah.
it was just like, it kind of snowballed, and I wasn't sure if they were asking us as, you know, members of school boards to try to help with this, or if it was just a readout. And I took it more as a readout of, this is the current situation.
Yeah. And so I think, what happens, like with what you're mentioning, is if a student is identified to need academic support, on the preschool level, they're typically assigned what's known as a special education itinerant teacher, and a lot of times those are like independent contractors, or they work for an agency, and they might travel to different locations throughout their day or week or whatever to provide those services. So if they have an option to go someplace that they feel more comfortable, they might be opting away from certain locations like you had mentioned. But it is an issue across the board, and it's an issue for not just academic services, but all of the related services, speech, OT, PT, counseling. So this is falling on school districts, which, like I said, we're fortunate enough that we have folks and we have set up a mechanism where they are getting paid through additional funds that we receive through grants. So we are able to pay them for this additional time beyond their regular workday, and that's great. But if all of this is gonna fall on school districts, then the funding needs to follow. And that's really our issue, right? Because if we need to hire somebody, we'll hire somebody. If we need to expand contracts that we have with the outside agencies that do PTOT, fine, we'll do that. But we can't do it and not receive any funding back for it. So that's really what I'm pushing for.
Okay.
Speaking of pre-K, our enrollment is currently very low. So everywhere you go, you need to tell everyone, if they have a pre-K age child, they need to register them. Because we don't have a real way of counting, who is it. We also don't have, a great mechanism for reaching people outside of what we've already used. So we put it in the newsletter. I have Jillian making up flyers. We're gonna put them back at like Morona's and the deli and all of that. But we're super low right now. We only have 17 students fully registered for pre-K for next year. And we know that number will climb. But you know, I think it might not be on everyone's radar, especially if it's their first child. So anybody you talk to, let them know if their packets in. So for kindergarten, our numbers are up in the high 40s right now. We do know that there are a couple more students who aren't registered, but they're coming out of our CPSE program, so we know that they're coming, but they're not fully registered at this time. So we have received full approval from the Millbrook Teachers Association to launch our internship program. That's for the college students to come and work alongside as a daily substitute. And when they are not subbing, what we give them in exchange is the opportunity to observe one of our faculty members in their classroom. So it's a nice exchange. They get to, you know, be in a school, they get to have guaranteed 4 days a week of work here in the school, which we always need substitutes. So it's phenomenal to have that opportunity. And in exchange, they also get to be in a school. So that's really good for them, right? They get to see different classrooms, different teaching styles, work with different administrators. So it's good for them as they enter into the teaching workforce. And I know Amy just learned of a grant through New Paltz actually, that there's additional monies that the students can benefit from. So those college students can benefit from that can help offset like the cost of their transportation and stuff. So we're gonna look into that as well. So if we can make it even more attractive to get more of these interns here, it's beneficial for us.
But does this shorten their runway to certification?
It can, and if they need hours in a school, it doesn't mean they don't have to take any courses or anything like that. It's not one of those like transitional programs. But it does help them to have like good resume building experience in a school district. So, and then it's also really helpful because administrators are in contact all the time, right? So if I have a friend in another district who's looking for, you know, a particular subject area teacher, and I'm like, oh, wait a second, we just had this phenomenal intern, you know, it can really help. And it becomes a pool if we need any positions filled as well, you know. So as we had mentioned in last meeting, Mr. Stipe and the high school teachers just finished their AP exams. So that was a successful run of APs. We also have secured both a math and literacy coach to continue working with our teachers for next year. So our P5 teachers will have a math coach as we expand the math instruction at the elementary level, and we will continue with the literacy coaching, and actually we're growing that into the secondary level as well next year. So we're excited about that. We have IXL, the end of the year benchmarking will start on May 22nd. And also we had another successful engineering week, which there will be, that article will be going out this week. The students built bridges out of straws at Alden Place. So we had a similar experience at Elm last month, and then Alden Place was just. In terms of safety, Alden Place last week also had a reunification simulation with help from the high school staff. The high school staff had previously done a reunification drill, so they were able to go down and lend a hand, and it went really smoothly. So if ever there was a need post-crisis to reunify, to make sure that the right student gets with the right family member and safely paired, that we would have at least seen the entire process start to finish throughout in a simulation type experience. Elm Drive will be doing the same, supported by the middle school staff in June. Again, the middle school staff has previously done this, so they'll be able to lend a hand and support for that process. I did want to thank the PTO for all of their staff appreciation efforts throughout this month. They've been going building by building and providing a meal for the teachers, and they've already met with the facilities group, and they'll also be doing for student as well. So thank you to the PTO for that. I know Mr. Cabello will mention, but our students enjoyed trips to Philadelphia and Washington, DC. From what I understand, the behavior was great, the experience was great. So I'm sure he'll say more about that. I did want to thank first student who planted a tree in dedication to the Millbrook Central School District. You can see the certificate later in the agenda. And also congratulations to the high school ruler team who presented last week on May 9th at Family University. They talked all about their SEL efforts and what they're doing to support that work at the high school. Last week on Friday, I believe it was absolutely the cutest little thing. The Elm Drive students had their annual music festival. So that was, I think, the first time back since the pandemic. It was absolutely the cutest thing. They were like skipping and singing and playing these little instruments, and they were delighted. I mean, the parents were equally as excited to watch, but they just had the absolute best time. And congratulations to Miss Wimmers. That was her first big concert, so that was really exciting to watch that for her at Elm Drive. Also, I wanted to thank all the poll workers who are down at the budget vote tonight, and Cheryl Freed for her leadership through that effort. I also want to say a special thanks to Elliot and Ashley for all the work that they did in putting the budget together. Tonight, you're also going to hear some information from Elliot on cooperative purchasing through Omnia. So that's really important information as we go into capital planning. And then Dr. Watkins is working on our ESSA title grants for next year. It's hard to believe that that's starting already. I feel like we get through one cycle and we don't even get to finish all the amendments and all the spending, and it's already starting for next year. Which is both a good sign and a really scary sign that we're sprinting to the finish right here. This month, May, is Mental Health Awareness Month. So Samantha Holtberg has been working to make sure that the counselors and the student support staff are making announcements related to mental health throughout this month. Additionally, on Friday, May 19th, we will be serving mint chocolate chip ice cream. It's green. That's the whole theme, the green color of the mental health awareness. So we will be serving mint chocolate chip ice cream. We are accepting donations for toppings. So if anyone would like to donate toppings, you can send that right into the middle school. If you get it to myself or any of the administrators, they'll get it to the appropriate people. I would say stay away from nuts. It's just always safe to avoid any nut donations.
What day did you say that was again?
May 19th, so
May
Friday.
19th, okay.
Yeah, Friday, it's exciting. And then Thursday night, we will have a speaker from New York's finest. It is a retired police officer who does an absolutely phenomenal presentation. It is so eye-opening for the parents who have been in attendance. They have really remarked at like, wow, all the things that they didn't necessarily have an awareness of before. I think it's really important, especially if you have younger students or adolescents. you know, how quickly conversations online can lead to really dangerous situations. And unfortunately, our youth, they just don't have the awareness, and they can be tricked very easily into figuring out their location, right? And unfortunately, somebody who's savvy on the internet can find them very quickly. And be put in a position where it could be a life and death situation. So we really need to educate not just our students, but also our parents. So please talk it up in the community. It's Thursday night. And it was phenomenal when it was here at the middle school. Well, and we just heard from the Rotary that we will be creating a community fridge at the public library. So there will be essentially the food pantry. It will accept donations, there will have fresh produce, you know, fresh foods, there will be like meals. I don't want to say meals ready to eat because that they're definitely not going to be that, but they're going to be prepared, ready to eat meals kind of thing. As well, and the Millbrook is going to volunteer to manage the fridge for a month. This time of year coming up is really hard because during the summers with vacations and whatnot, there's just not a stable presence on campus, but in the fall, we're going to take a month and we're going to donate our time to go down and make sure it's fully stocked, make sure everything is clean, make sure that everything is going appropriately.
Can you, when it's, you know, proper, can you send an invite to the board to take a look and,
100%.
you know, and
Yeah, so it's-
see what we can do to help as well?
Yeah, that would be great. So it's getting up and running. I know that the Rotary themselves is managing May and June just to get everything running. But Amy can send that information to all of the board members so that you folks can be fully informed as well. But it's a great idea. I mean, so many folks need. So it's really nice that there will at least be something to support the community very locally. It takes that need for transportation or whatever out of it. We, as you know, do an annual review of all of our students who are placed in out-of-district programs. We are looking at a couple of students who have similar management needs and are, you know, functioning at comparable levels. And so rather than sending them to out-of-district programs, we may create another classroom here to bring them home and look for other students from neighboring districts. We will not be accepting tuition. But Alex is going to work with the directors in the area to see if potentially we could enter into a consortium. So it would only be available for, you know, one particular district for that particular program. So it doesn't open us up to a tuition like influx kind of thing.
We have the room.
We do, yeah, we do. So, and something really exciting is that last week, I believe it was, we met with Oakley Thorne and a couple who is currently living in the Millbrook district and has experience working at Google and setting up these amazing digital labs across the country. So they came to meet with us and also the new CEO for the community partnership, which I'm not sure if they've been publicly named, so I will not name them. So they came and met with us and talked to us about our future goals and essentially how the remodel and renovation of the Thorne building can support our programs and really can allow us the opportunity to create programs and sort of work with them as like a launching point, but also how they can piggyback off of our programs and possibly create a scenario where we can get some accredited programming like in the evening. So a kid can come and take their courses throughout the day, but they're really interested in something like computer programming or something. So they can start to take like an entry-level college course in computer programming down the street right here in Millbrook. So we talked about some of that with like a lot of the digital IT, computer science, coding stuff. We talked about lots of different STEM stuff in terms of the types of machinery and stuff that we have here, what would be cool to have there. We talked about the culinary program and being able to, you know, provide students with an authentic audience in the community. We talked about opportunities for high school students to go down and teach some of our older residents who maybe aren't as computer savvy, how to use their devices safely, like those kinds of things. So there's lots of opportunities that are coming in the future. And I think that it's just going to be so awesome. And I'm so glad that they are willing to have this conversation with us and really include us along the way. Being mindful of the school is just I mean, I think it's just so kind of them. Because they don't have to, but we do appreciate it. So we look forward to having that ongoing conversation, and that's really all I have.
That's, I mean, that's really important because there's such an opportunity.
Mhm.
And it's hard because it's 2 or 3 years out.
Mhm.
So you kind of, you want to put over efforts into it. Then you sort of say, maybe I'll wait a couple of years, and then you forget. And I think it's a huge opportunity for Millbrook to take another step up.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, even the park, at some point, we should look at. Is there stuff there like our science class we do? Is there stuff there that, planting trees or whatever it is? Is there some way to get Millbrook Central School District more engaged with the village? I think that's a great thing.
So, part of what Elliot's going to talk about in his presentation is, an opportunity through Train Technologies that has a, capital component, but then also has a component of education for our students as well. So, that'll be really neat.
Very good. Questions for Caroline?
Thank you.
Ellie?
Great, thank you. Okay, so we wanted to share with the board just the progress we've made so far in our capital planning initiative. And as Caroline did reference, like we'll be discussing some cooperative purchasing pieces and energy performance contracts and things like that. We're going to start with just some background information with some folks who are new to this conversation. And where we started 2 years ago. In 2021, the board asked us to start the process for a large capital project, a renovation project. And I just wanted to note that the construction history of Millbrook Central School District, most of our buildings were constructed in the 50s or 1960s. This building was built in 1960. There were additions put on Olden and Elm Drive right around 1992-ish. And the high school was built in 2006. We had an energy performance contract which upgraded some of our HVAC equipment at Alden and in this building at the middle school. The windows were replaced at Alden. It's pretty much it. So by and large, our buildings that are roughly 60 years old are predominantly in the original condition in which they were built. So it's just something to reference for our community, for our board members. Most building systems are designed to last 30 to 50 years, and many of ours are at least a decade, if not more, beyond. So it's just something to keep in mind as we talk about our needs-based planning process. So the baseline for this whole initiative is really 3 pieces, right? We did an elective building condition survey with our new architectural firm in 2022, just last year. We just are finishing up, and I think we'll be presenting soon, the district strategic plan, our 5-year strategic plan, which really outlines, our mission, vision, values, and pillars, and I think defines the true north of the district and where we plan to go. And that's a critical component of construction renovation project. If we're going to build something that we want to last 15 to 20 years, we should probably have that long range vision locked down before we start that process. And that's something that we agreed upon at the very beginning of this whole movement. And then just the evolving needs of the district, both current and prospective, just the conversation we've had tonight about traffic, infrastructure, flow, students, population enrollment, and all these things come into play when we're making these decisions. So our primary considerations, we always lead with health and safety, right? If the kids aren't safe and they're not healthy, they can't learn. Right after that is our program, the direction that we're going in instructional. So those 2 things will always be at the very top of the list when it comes to capital improvements. Beyond that, deferred maintenance. These are 2 words that I hate when they're tied together, but it speaks to Band-Aids rather than actual repairs and replacements. And we've talked about that at length in previous conversations. Infrastructure is defined many ways. It's vehicular, it's foot traffic, it's data traffic. So all those infrastructure needs are considered. Sustainability is one of our pillars in the new strategic plan. It's very important to the district that to be sustainable. And in doing so, reduces our carbon footprint and any negative impact to our environment. Right? We want to teach our kids how to take care of the world around them. And so anything that we build or renovate has to have a sustainability lens. And always cost is a driving factor. So this is a real, I'm going to run through this, board members, you all have this in front of you. It is going to be available on the website. So I don't have to go into too much detail, but from 2021 to 2022, we brought a new architectural firm in to really guide us through this process. From March to May, so that spring semester of 2022, they dug in, they did this elective building condition survey. As a reminder, the state mandates such a survey every 5 years. In 2015, they took the entire state off of one cycle and moved to 20% of the districts every year. And in doing so, we got stretched out 9 years. So our next mandated condition survey is actually going to be next year in 2024. But in order to get ahead of this process, we did one electively in 2022. Those findings were shared with the Board of Education in June of 22, just about a year ago. If you remember, we talked about identifying roughly $41.7 million in building condition needs over the next 5 years. And that is, just as a reminder, that doesn't speak to what we want to do, that speaks to what we have to do. And it doesn't speak to improving the condition of our buildings, it just means getting them up to good condition. So if Dr. Watkins was to share a vision for a new learning environment, that's not accounted for in these plans. These plans are, that ceiling's in deplorable shape, these floors are terrible, the walls are falling in, that kind of very fundamental stuff. And in doing that assessment, they identified just over $40 million of things we need to address over the next 5 years. What's really important about that building condition survey process is if we were to entertain a renovation component that we decided to tell the state of New York, this is an emergency, we have to expedite this, we need to put it at the top of the approval list, and we didn't identify it in the previous building condition survey as a critical item, they have the authority to say, you didn't tell us this was important then, it's not important now. And so we don't want to be in a position where the state deprioritizes our work. So we have to be very forthcoming in what our critical needs are. So this year, we've added to the process, we've added to our project team. We brought in a new financial advisor in December, that's Bernard P. Donegan, or BPD Incorporated. And they specialize in many things, but one of them is debt management and fiscal planning, long range planning. So when we talk about construction renovation projects, they're usually financed by bonds over 15 to 18 years. Our high school was financed for 30 years because it was new construction. So we look at where that debt sits in our budget, not just now, but prospectively over the next decade and a half, to understand the tax implications to our community as we're adding debt for future projects. Then in January, we brought in the Palumbo Group to be our construction managers. So if you think about the architects and engineers as the designers of these projects, the construction managers are, they're kind of the boots on the ground overseeing the execution of that project. What they do for the planning piece is they really bring a real world construction lens of today costs and projected costs over the next 2 to 3 years. So we kind of put this whole team together to help us identify what we need, how to do it, and what we think it's going to cost over the next 2 to 3 years of what that project might take. And again, a capital project, you use a rough estimate of about 36 months from voter referendum to completion. So now we find ourselves January to November of 23, we're in what we call the pre-referendum design phase. And that's when we bring all of these partners to the table. So we've started having meetings with the capital project team. When we talk about our capital project team, that's the administration. We have board members on our facilities committee that have joined us as well. Our design professionals, BBS Architects and Engineers, the Palumbo Group is our construction managers. We also have BPD dialing in with the financial information, and we'll talk about other partnerships that we're entertaining going forward. So we started the process by having BPD do a debt analysis earlier this year in January. They looked at our long range debt and they gave us a rough project budget to start working on. So they said, and when we start this process, what I'll say a project budget is, we try to start with a cost neutral, tax neutral projects to the community. So what that means is you have debt coming off the books, and if we maintained comparable tax levy, we can replace that debt without really increasing taxes significantly to the community. So that's what we'll refer to going forward as a cost neutral project budget. So that was defined for us in January. And that's what we use as kind of a baseline of planning from January to today. In February, we had our first project team meeting where we brought those numbers to the table with everyone on the team, and we started looking at what we could do with that budget. I will say that the identified cost neutral budget is significantly less than our identified needs on the building condition survey list, which is not surprising. We kind of thought that was the case. But we also looked at what an energy performance contract could do as a dovetail project with our capital. So what that means is, and again, I'm just gonna explain it for anybody that's unfamiliar. An energy performance contract leverages the money you spend on utilities to do things that improve your energy efficiency with the intent on taking money you're paying the utilities and reallocating it to pay off the project, again, with a relatively cost neutral impact to the community. So in very rough numbers, let's say for argument's sake, the windows behind you are not super efficient. So the heat kind of bleeds out of this space and goes outside into the atmosphere. So we can do an energy performance contract that says, well, we can replace all the windows in here. And if it costs $100 a month to heat this room, if we had better windows, it might cost us $60 a month to heat this room. And we would use the $40 difference to pay off the windows. So we're not really raising taxes to do that project. Does that make sense? So that's kind of a real simple explanation of what an EPC can do. So we started talking about what could we do under an energy performance contract that would take some of the stuff off of that BCS list and make it further cost neutral by kind of taking it out of that debt management plan identified by our financial advisors. So the company that we did engage with is Trane Technologies. Trane Technologies does do EPCs. They are a heating and ventilation and air conditioning company. They manufacture both equipment and control systems. They do energy performance contracts like this. They also do sustainability projects. And one of the cool things about what Trane offers is what Caroline referenced earlier, is there's a whole instructional program, companion component to their EPCs. So what they'll do is they'll sit down with Caroline, myself, Dr. Watkins, will sit together and they'll say, okay, so if we're doing a solar array, we can bring this dashboard into the classroom. We have learning materials that professional educators work with our teams to build. Dr. Watkins can review it with our administration and our instructional leaders and say, okay, this can be infused into this science class, this STEM class, this project lead the way class. And really, turn our buildings into living laboratories. So our kids are not just learning this conceptual theory, they're learning that stuff's actually on my roof. We're collecting solar energy right now, and we're looking at what that impact could be, both in reduction of our carbon footprint and in generation. So at this point, back in April break, we brought in Trane's representatives to talk about what they think we could do. At the same time, we had the BBS architects and engineers come in. Dr. Watkins and I did walkthroughs with them for multiple buildings, shared some great ideas for instructional program improvements, or really fixing, I'd say, restructuring some of our buildings to better support instruction in some really cool ways that we look forward to sharing down the line very soon. And to work with that. So it was a really cool, a couple of sessions that we had. And we started looking into how we can make this all happen. So as of right now, we've looked at our building condition survey. We've identified major needs in terms of HVAC, electrical systems. I'll say that Elm Drive Elementary, for example, some of the electrical panels in that building are original to the building. They don't make the replacement parts anymore for that. So as we look to upgrade systems, things like electrical panels kind of have to go with it, because you can't add new stuff to old panels. It becomes challenging. So there's some related work that's not as fun to talk about, but it's necessary. Plumbing and lighting, same way. Lighting is one of the most common things that EPCs absorb in, because you can change the draw from these bulbs right above our heads. You can cut them by 60 to 80% by upgrading these LEDs. So things like that are done to really reduce our electrical expenses and try to offset some of the costs of some of these cooler projects we can do. There's also the concern of ADA compliance, specifically in this building, but we have in other buildings as well. And overall building envelopes, we talk about floors, doors, windows, roofs, things like that. Other things that we're looking at. So we talked about traffic a little bit earlier in this evening's meeting. We have our architects and engineers have drawn up proposed plans that would augment the traffic patterns both at the main campus and at Elm Drive Elementary. So we will be showing the board and the community what some of that could look like at our June meeting when we bring everybody together. We've also talked about upgrading our STEM and science rooms at the high school. We talked about doing it here at the middle school as well. This roof, some of you know, this roof is the bane of my existence. It's driving me crazy. We'd love to upgrade the roof. And again, when we look at a solar project, this is one of those things where you're not gonna put new solar panels on the old roof, let's fix the roof, design it in a way to support that solar component, so that's when you wanna bring everybody together at the front end of the planning process, so we don't do things twice. And then just overall energy saving optimization options, like HVAC options, HVAC control. Sometimes it's not just getting the new thing on the wall, but how we control it, right? We want to make the buildings as comfortable as we can when everybody's here, and then reduce as much energy as we can when nobody's here, because that's what's going to save us money without impacting our kids or staff. And then we've talked about just other improvements to other instructional spaces, cafeterias, kitchens, and building systems. Again, some of these are like the domino effect, right? If we're gonna fix this space, the room next to it could also be fixed relatively, manageably. And so that the conversation kind of evolves from there. So this is the part where I'm talking about cooperative purchasing. Energy performance contract assessments cost money. And a lot of the things that we're looking at in terms of mechanical upgrades. So one of the biggest examples of value add for cooperative purchasing is doing a design build with a company like Trane. So you can say, I want this piece of equipment, I want the controls to work this way, and they help us plan it, design it, submit it to the state, and under a cooperative purchasing agreement, we can buy it directly through them by piggybacking off of existing bid contracts. So in very simple language, there are a number of cooperative purchasing groups out there, Omnia being one of the biggest ones in the country. And what they do is they say, okay, so let's make it like local, we won't go national for a second, but if Dover just bid a widget and I need the same widget, right now I have to do the same bid for the same widget. And that adds my lead time, and I can give me a different price than Dover paid, and they're right next door. So when we introduce piggybacking language, as a district, what we're saying is we're going to participate or allow our administration and our staff to buy things based on other people's approved contracts under New York State General Municipal Law. There were amendments that were put into GML in 2013 to allow all municipalities to piggyback off of each other. And these cooperative purchasing groups took that model and blew it up. They were like, well, if Millbrook can piggyback off of Dover, why can't Millbrook piggyback off of Chicago or Los Angeles or Phoenix, right? Because we sell the same stuff to those school districts. We can sell it to you for the same price. They went through a competitive bidding process. So if New York State agrees that that process was valid and done with fidelity, then why can't we sell it to you that way? So that's kind of the model that we're looking at. So there's a number of cooperatives out there, like I said. Even New York State's Office of General Services has started to leverage cooperative purchasing groups. So like when I was buying vehicles in my last district, they used to give you over 100 options for vehicle. And now OGS says, you can have one of these 7 under our contracts, and anything outside of this, use that cooperative purchasing group. We're going to honor their price. So they're letting third parties kind of do their legwork for them. So what we're kind of proposing, and again, this is supported by the New York State Association of School Business Officials. Erie One BOCES did a presentation on this a couple months ago that I had the benefit of attending. And the director of procurement for Erie One BOCES, which is one of the biggest buyers in the state for schools, said, if you can do this, you're going to save time, lead time, money, and it eliminates some of the variables of like, well, you bid this piece out here. So like we bid HVAC equipment at Alden, and then we bid it at the middle school, and 2 different companies won it. So now we're getting 2 different types of equipment, and we have to make them all play nice together. And we're adding 3 different systems and 3 buildings that are right next to each other because of the way the bids played out. Whereas if we just did it under one of these contracts, we can say, well, other people bid it out already, so we want this one, and we want it everywhere. And we can kind of unify our systems that way, simplify our operation, and allow us to have less different types of repair parts and equipment. So just want to make sure I covered everything. So what Trane Technologies is offering, and this is very similar to what VBS, like VBS is not charging us an exorbitant amount of money for all this planning process work before the vote, because we hope that if the vote passes, they would roll their costs into our project expenses. So Trane Technologies is offering something very similar in parallel. They're saying, you know, we'll do a full-scale EPC assessment. We'll tell you exactly, they're going to look at all of our bills, they're going to look at our energy usage, our condition of our equipment. They're going to say, for X million dollars in an EPC, we can replace all these things and give you all this stuff, and then we'll put it out to bid for you. under the Omnia Cooperative Purchasing Agreement. So what they would like to see from us is a letter of intent to work with them. So that we're basically saying, if we don't go ahead with this project, we'll compensate you under that cooperative purchasing agreement for the work you did to identify and package it for us, right? So they want to get paid for the work they're gonna do. So when Carol and I discussed this at the project team meeting and shortly afterwards, I was like, well, this is not just a capital thing, right? Because we can use these cooperative purchasing groups for everything, for WB Mason, pens and pencils. I mean, it gives us a different purchasing option, which is only going to benefit the district going forward. So silly one, but we have fuel oil, right? We can either buy it from the state contract or from Dutchess BOCES bid right now. Opening up cooperative purchasing means that anybody else bid fuel and it's under one of these co-ops, we can look for the best price versus all those other contracts. We can do that with school furniture, we can do that with cleaning materials. So it's not just a capital thing that we would benefit from, but it's something that I think the district could really manage going forward, not just with this project, but in the future in a number of different ways. So all that to say, where do we go from here? It's May. We're looking at a prospective November 7th referendum for this capital project. For the rest of this school year, we're really identifying all the things we would love to do and would want to do. But obviously we can't do everything. So what we would like is in support of exploring cooperative purchasing. I will sign the letter of intent with Train tomorrow and get them working on the CPC right away. I will ask Ms. Sprague to prepare a resolution with our legal team to have the board take action on June 6th to allow the district, to authorize the districts to implement those amendments to the general municipal law that allow us to do piggybacking and cooperative purchasing. And then at the second June meeting, we'd like on June 20th to bring our project teammates to the board meeting, our architects and engineers, our construction managers, and the folks from Train Technologies to speak about what our packaging options are for that November hit. And what we'd like to do is, I'm going to ask the financial planners to give us some figures that we can share with the board and the community about what going beyond tax neutral might look like if the board wants to explore that. So I'll say very, very generally, if our cost neutral number is 10 or 20, and we identified 40 or 50 in need, we want to know what that incremental increase might look like to the community, because big numbers are scary, but sometimes it's $50 to the average homeowner. It might be $100 a year to the average homeowner. So I think in order for us to all make an informed decision together, we should probably know not just the big number, but the individual homeowners impact numbers. So I think the last time I looked at our average home assessed value in our district, it was like $378,000 or something thereabouts. So let's say it's $400,000. So the financial advisor would say, all right, so for every $1 million you go beyond tax neutral, or for every $5 million you go beyond tax neutral, it's $20 a year to your taxpayer on a $400,000 assessed home value. So you can kind of, as an individual homeowner, figure out, all right, so my house is a little bit less than that, it would be a little bit less, a little bit more, it might be a little bit. But I think that that's really important to have those numbers for us to make an informed decision. And then how this all plays out is if, we can say we're going to have a multiple proposition vote in November if we choose to go that way, right? And that would be proposition 1 could be one package of work inclusive of an EPC that would be relatively cost neutral to the taxpayers. And we can add a proposition 2 or even a third that would incrementally increase taxes in a way that we feel is responsible and manageable for our taxpayers. But the reality is we have to start getting ahead of some of this work. We can't go another 60 years with a major renovation project. It's not fair to our kids or our community, because the longer we put this off, the more we're deferring expenses to the taxpayers, and we want to kind of stop that as soon as we can and start to be a little bit more responsible with the long range fiscal and structural planning for the district. So
Yeah, I mean, it's important, especially for the taxpayers to understand, what we don't want to do is do, the tax neutral project. And then 2 years from now, we're coming back saying, oh, well, the windows just fell out of the middle school. I mean, because people are gonna say, didn't you just spend a bunch of money doing this? We need to know what it costs to do what we need And that includes, improvements, not just, the windows are falling out. But we also need to know what that cost is. And then, as a board, we can make that decision. And we can look at, because I really believe that we're gonna need to do some new communications, whether, once before we had a meeting at the firehouse to talk about
Yeah, so
issues. I think we're gonna need to do something like that. And maybe it's several of them, maybe it's one around transportation or traffic, or maybe it's one around energy. But we need to really, as we move closer to November, we need to make sure that we understand all of that.
to your point, that's exactly why we want to bring this to the board in June. We want to give our design professionals this summer to really start drilling down the plan. So right now, if I was to pull up what's been discussed, it's a 1-pager. That's eventually going to be a 10-page, right? So like, rather than show you one sketch of what could be, they're going to spend some time and energy really drilling down what those plans are going to look like as we would present them to the community. So that when we get back in September and October, we can really do exactly what you described. Get out there, get the information to the people, and I think we owe it to our community. A lot of them that have lived here have never seen a large scale renovation project, so we owe it to them to be completely transparent with what we want to do, why we want to do it, what's.
Questions?
How long has the cooperative purchasing been around, did you? say?
2013, when the amendments to New York State, general municipal law.
All right. Thank you, Elliot.
Thank you, Elliot. Thank you.
Looking forward to it. All right, Mr. Cabela.
All right, so I'm gonna echo actually a lot of the stuff that Ms. Hernandez talked about, because large scale, we've got a lot of stuff going on, but smaller scale here at the middle school, we're supporting a lot of those things as well. So, last week, I would like to acknowledge that we did recognize our nurses. It was Nurses Week for all the work that they've done throughout the district, but also here at the middle school. And we also recognized our teachers, because it was Teachers Week as well, and all our mental health professionals. So we had a lot of that really good stuff happening in the building. At the same time that was going on, as Ms. Hernandez said, we were off to Philadelphia as well as Washington, DC. In both places, we were highly commended, which we always are, honestly, for our students' behavior, the way they treat others and each other while in these really historic sites. And we had a really great trip in both scenarios. Major plug I always want to make to everybody here and both in the community is that we always try to keep our Instagram and Twitter page up to date. So we're putting lots of pictures from those trips. So if you want to see it live in action, it's all on there. And then of course, in our monthly newsletters, we make all those updates as well. Back to our mental health awareness month coming up. I want to say a big thank you to Ms. Holzberg and her team, working with Melinda Vasquez, who is our new social worker, who has really hit the ground running. I can't say enough. Within her first few days here, she was working with my team specifically in the middle school about ways that she could get involved. So she's getting into lunchrooms, classrooms, and really getting involved with all of our students and families. So that's been really great and much needed service that our families seek. We're hitting the end of the year, so all of the end of the year stuff is coming. We're finalizing things like our IXL and ELA math are going to be coming up. We are also going to be looking forward to end of the year events, which are also fun, but academic as well. So at the middle school, we do have our summative assessments we do in that second last week of school. In our core classes like math, science, social studies, and ELA, wanting to see where our students are at by the end of the year in their academic pursuits. Our Eureka Math pilot continues to go out as we do that in mathematics. And then we had some really fun events too that were happening. We were in the community here locally as well. So you may have caught our sixth graders down at Morono's with Miss Anson doing our math night, which is always a really fun event. Our National Junior Honor Society students were in town, took a little in-town field trip to replant some planters in town and just make some local impact. Our garden club was working with sixth graders on Earth Day to do some local planting here at the middle school. Just lots of really, really cool stuff. Our eighth graders, thanks to the high school, inviting us up to the college and career fair, kind of made their first steps to their transition up to the high school, because believe it or not, we are quickly, and I can't believe it, saying goodbye to our eighth graders as they graduate Millbrook Middle School in June. So again, things like our academics awards are coming up, that first week in June on Friday during the school day, and then eventually our moving up ceremony, which is really, really wild. To finalize some things, we did complete our state testing in math and ELA. Really, really, really happy to see, we only had 25% of students and families refuse this year, which is about 15% increase of students taking that exam. So that's really important data that we utilize, and we're super, super appreciative of that. Lots of really fun stuff. It's getting a little crazy here with all the things going on. But we expect that at the end of May into June, and just can't say enough about the quality of our students and how great things have gone this year. So really happy. I think I did that.
The concert is June 7th, right? That's the
concert-
Spring Arts Festival.
The concert is June 7th, yes, as well as our last of the trips, medieval times for our sixth graders.
Other question? Very good, thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
Always.
All right, let's keep going. Next is questions or comments from the public.
We have none online, I don't know
Oh,
what. Seeing them.
You guys don't? No?
Uh,
All right. Next in correspondence is the, excuse me, the Dutchess County BOCES spotlight. Just, for your entertainment. Did you want to talk about the certificate on the tree planting?
Yeah, I was just passing it along, that got sent to our office, and I was just really appreciative that they thought to do that on, in dedication to the school district, so I just wanted the board to see that, but I did think that earlier.
Very nice.
Where did they plan it?
yeah, where did they
I don't
plan?
actually know. I don't actually know what
it? Scavenger.
if you find it, let me know,
That's right.
I can ask.
We named it Waldo, so you gotta go
All of
find
us.
where Waldo. Okay, enrollment report. Don't know if any comments or questions? In case anyone's joined us, pre-K registration is underway. If you have a student that age or a child that age, please come forward to register them for pre-K.
All right, one question. When will we get the numbers for the BOCES enrollment
Both season enrollment,
for the next year?
both season enrollment, I think it was at 35, right? 35.
What was our?
38 is that?
What was it this year? Well, that's the people that are going to attempt to get in both, right? So they may not have an opening.
Right, so that's the number of seats we're supporting, but
Yep.
what happened this past year was that some of the programs were closed and whatnot, but, we're supporting 35 this year, and then each year we'll do 15 and 15. That was what the board had agreed to, that we would keep it at 30, so it'd be 15 juniors and 15 for their second year as
So
well.
we're within that. Okay,
What's
I
that?
just wanted to make sure we're within
Just so,
the numbers. That's
Yep. So this was the one transition year we agreed to.
okay, suspension incident report. Any, again, for your, excuse me, for your reading. Any comments, questions? All right. Took this. All right, let me ask your report, Chris.
Sure. So fairly soon you will see posters for the graduating seniors funded by MEF. So we're super happy to be able to do that this year. And also we have, just a reminder, we have 4 scholarships that graduating seniors can apply for. So Ms. Prince and Mr. Chinaski should have the deadline dates for those. So just, we want to encourage, $2,000 each. Encourage, make sure that seniors who wish to apply for those do that. We are gearing up sort of for our first sprint of our marathon of Taste of Millbrook, which is September 23rd. So our sponsorship letters are starting to go out. If anybody would like one, we have all, you know, a broad range of sponsorship levels. You can be a sponsor at an individual level for any amount you wish. So, and then we're also soliciting auction items. Businesses, individuals, anything interesting, we're open to it. And anything else? That's about it. Did you have anything?
And the only thing I would say is that the Giving Tree applications
I'm
will be
sorry.
going out, so that will debut at Taste of Millbrook, so.
Right.
Teachers or staff, whomever can put an item on the Giving Tree. Actually, I think we did up to 3 items
I think
that they were able to do on the Giving Tree, and then folks who attend the Taste of Millbrook can pick something and decide that they want to sponsor it. They commit to providing the money for that. So applications for the Giving Tree will go out soon. We're trying to time it just right. We don't want to send it out too soon that people forget. But we want to make sure that they have it for the end of the year so that we can process everything for that date, September 8th.
Thank you. Never got that.
Good. Question for Chris? All right, safety committee.
So the safety committee actually met in March was the last time, we met as a full committee, but it didn't seem that long ago, but when I looked at the calendar, it was. So at that meeting, we had done some tabletop scenarios. We also will be doing similar tabletop scenarios, including the entire faculty of each building. Because I think it's a good opportunity for folks to think on their feet in, you know, what feels like a pressured situation, when you're on the spot kind of thing, but thankfully, you know, it's not, it's just for practice. And then also to have the after action feedback kind of loop where it's like, well, the things you said were great, but did you think of this? And did you think of this? So that if ever there is an incident to respond to, whomever is there first can actually start taking action rather than waiting for someone on the safety team that is, you know, better trained. Additionally, the safety team, like I said, we're planning reunification drills throughout the district. The secondary schools have done them already this past year. So the elementary this year with the support from the secondary school. So that's all functioning through the district's emergency response team.
Very good. Question? Wellness?
So wellness met as well. The wellness committee is working in sort of subcommittees, talking about all the different aspects of wellness. So, mental health, social, emotional, physical health as well. And looking at all the different facets of wellness. And then there's an advocacy team. So what I've sort of found is that advocacy, we're kind of waiting to find out how we can best support all the other initiatives, but I think we've really come up with some good ideas. The last meeting, this is Samantha's committee. What she did was rather than meet in subcommittees, she actually had the whole group review what the other subcommittees have been working on. And again, give some feedback as to, have you thought about this? This is an opportunity because obviously all different people have different perspectives. So I think we'll round out this year with a really good plan for where to start off next year, where to continue in terms of our wellness initiative and really pairing child nutrition. Now that Holly's back, we can bring her back into the fold of that conversation. We did have representation from food services, so that was good throughout the year, but really being able to continue that conversation and then look at how we can publicize some of this out into the community and make it sort of a routine thing where there's just sort of like wellness shorts that come out from the district.
Question? Thank you, Carol.
Sure.
Future agenda items, you know, the drill. something you want to put on, please let me know. Next is an executive session. Just to remind everybody, even though we go into executive session, when we come back out, the meeting is not over. We may have actions that need to be taken in public. So, there could be additional motions added to the agenda after we return from executive session. So with that, do I have a motion to go to executive session?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any against? All right, how about 10 minutes?
It's okay.